So I'll close public forum. I'll open the extraordinary meeting to be held today, Wednesday, April the 8th, 2020. I'll call for apologies, for which there is none. I'll call for disclosures of interest, for which there is none. And then I'll have a motion. I'll ask Councillor Kennedy to move his motion. Councillor Kennedy, we'll just unmute you. Can you read the motion out, please, that you have?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. That the Broken Hill City Council supports effective isolation measures to protect the community from the coronavirus for Broken Hill, Menindee, Wilcannia and Ivanhoe, and all other populations relying on Broken Hill for services, including health services. 2, that the Broken Hill City Council supports imposing travel restrictions for the region. 3, that the Mayor immediately contact via phone and by all other means the State Health Minister Brad Hazzard and the Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt, informing them that we as a council and a community want to impose travel restrictions for Broken Hill and region. That the Broken Hill City Council supports the communities of Wilcannia, Menindee and Ivanhoe for their appeal to restrict travel to their communities. That those that live in the region be exempt from additional local travel restrictions and only be restricted by the current New South Wales COVID-19 legislation. 6, that we request that the New South Wales Health Minister instruct the local emergency management committee to implement travel restrictions to Broken Hill and region, that the LMC liaise with the governing body of the Broken Hill City Council and other key stakeholders about what travel restrictions are to be imposed and how that the LMC be instructed to brief the governing body of the Broken Hill City Council weekly on actions that are taken in regards to the coronavirus outbreak. That's it.
Bob, are you happy to second that motion? Bob, are you happy to second the motion?
Yeah, I'll be happy to second the motion to get it to discussion stage, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll go back to Tom to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason I move this motion, now we all know that a lot of people have different opinions on what works and doesn't work when it comes to the coronavirus. Both our police officers, Yvette and Andrew, gave us a fairly lengthy presentation and I thank them for that. What has been pretty obvious in the past is, well, even as now, Western Australia, South Australia, Tasmania, Northern Territory, Canberra, they all have travel restrictions. In some states, they have localised travel restrictions. What has been made quite clear, both internationally and nationally, travel restrictions do limit the spread of the coronavirus. Why? Another reason I move this is, and we do have other opinions, I believe that putting in border restrictions will save lives. That doesn't mean that I'm right, but that's why I feel obligated to move this motion and do all I can to make sure this happens. If it saves one life, then I believe I've done my job. Barbara Webster, in her presentation to Council, asked for a number of things to be introduced to help stop the spread. It's been made clear, and it was on the ABC radio, that Menindee, Wilcannia and Ivanhoe, as communities, are doing all they can to try and get the Minister to implement travel restrictions. What is with those communities is that there is a number of children with respiratory problems, other people with chronic illness. There's also overcrowded in housing. So as a council, I'd like to see us do all we can to ensure that the Minister, the Health Minister, Brad Hazzard, actually gives the local emergency management committee the authority to stop cars on the highway. What was made clear at the moment, there is no ability for police officers or any other person to stop people from entering Broken Hill or stop cars. It would require directive and legislation from the Health Minister. Broken Hill, if we were given the same level as protections as Queensland, South Australia, etc., who will not get people from Sydney and Melbourne without some sort of restriction. Here in Broken Hill, we are still open to the two highest cases of coronavirus, and that's Sydney and Melbourne. So I ask councillors to support this motion and help protect the community of the Far West and Broken Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy, and I'm pleased to say that we've already started writing to the Premier. Is there a speaker against? No speaker against? No speaker against, I'll put the motion. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Oh, Jim, are you speaking against Jim? Oh, no, he's okay, so you need to vote using your system on the side. See the yes vote? Can you see down the bottom where it's got participants? And there is a yes and a no. So all those in favour, Tom's voted yes. Bob's voted yes.
So that's two. Marion's
and or no. So Jim, no, not that one. So I'm just going to say this again. Where you vote is where you see the participants list and you can see the microphones, and down the bottom is a green button saying yes and a red button saying no. Can you see that? Can everybody see that?
They won't have this screen.
Oh,
It'll be on there.
don't they can see it? Oh, no, they can see participants. So, okay. So we have two voted yes. I might have to ask people to raise their hands if they're voting. What I'm going to do, just in case you're not sure where the button is, I'm just going to say, raise your hands if you're voting yes in the air. So yes for Jim Nolan. That was it? Okay. Okay, Bob's a yes. Isn't it? I'm just going to stop this for a minute, just go back. Can you hear me? So we're putting the motion, nobody was speaking against, so we're putting Tom's motion, and I'm going to ask you to use your yes button or no button to vote. This is the way we have to vote. So we're going to start over again, and we're putting the vote now. Maureen, are you trying to vote?
She's trying to speak, maybe.
Maureen, what are you up to?
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would to maybe make an addendum if I possibly could.
What's your addendum?
My addendum is that this motion should go perhaps to the LEMC committee there to consider. They're going to have a meeting tomorrow, and that they would be in the position, and we know they're the ones who are in the position because council certainly isn't. They're in the position to be able to make overtures to the state government about travel restrictions and the sorts of things which are being suggested here in this motion, which looks, I think, to be something that we would all like to see. We would all like to see effective isolation measures put into place. But having had that talk from the police, we can see that travel restrictions are going to be very difficult, if nigh on impossible. We also heard that the restrictions that were put on towns, on town borders in Queensland, just didn't work. Certainly.
I'm just going to check with Tom. So Maureen's just asking Tom if you are happy with an addendum to say that your motion, including we refer this motion to the Local Emergency Management Committee. Is that right, Maureen?
To them, simply because they are the people who are going to be in the position to be able to push this motion forward, to be able to push certain parts of the motion. And if other parts of the motion are difficult or have difficulties attached to them, they are in the position where they will be able to either modify them or let us know why they were not able to be put forward.
Thank you. I just mute Maureen for a second. Tom, are you happy if we add that to your motion?
No, I'm not, but I can understand where Councillor Clark is coming from. But what was quite clear is, at the moment, the Local Emergency Management Committee doesn't believe with isolating the state borders. So as a council, we're there to represent the community. It's up to us to vote the way we believe, and the Local Emergency Management Committee will do what they have to do. So, sorry, Councillor Clark, I couldn't accept that, but I do acknowledge what you're saying.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So, Councillor Clark, you're going to move it as an amendment then?
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to move that as an amendment, Madam Mayor, that this motion goes to that meeting. I see no harm in that whatsoever, that we put these points to the meeting of the LEMC, which is going to take place tomorrow, and that committee is in the best position to be able to make decisions on the points which are contained in this motion. And certainly there are some very good points there about isolation, but it was equally pointed out to us by the police that there would be some difficulties with at least some of those points.
I'll just see if there's a seconder for the amendment. Is there a second by Councillor Adams? Thank you, Councillor Adams. Now, speakers, Councillor Clark, do you want to speak to your amendment?
Well, it's simply to say, Madam Mayor, that there were some very good points put to us by the police about the difficulties in implementing a lockdown, and the very, very good reasons that were put forward there about that, and the difficulties for local people would find in moving in and out of Broken Hill. I think also the references that were made to Wilcannia and Menindee as danger spots, perfectly valid, absolutely perfectly valid, and we would just, you know, have to acknowledge that. And we have a similar problem here in Broken Hill, but it's out of council's jurisdiction. The Wilcannia and Menindee are both under control of the Central Darling Shire, who have made applications to the state government in efforts to isolate both of those communities to no avail. However, should they want to make application again, and should they want our support, well, certainly we could do that. And the LEMC is in the perfect position to be able to ensure that that support was pushed to the state level. I do believe, Mayor Turley, that you have also written to the health ministers both of them regarding our concerns about the virus being transferred into this community by any visitors that come to this town. And perhaps you, when I finish speaking, you might be able to let us know just what degree of success that or not that has brought. Certainly, we have an older population demographic in Broken Hill and a reasonably high Aboriginal population as well. And so that's highly relevant too, which is why it is important, and I think the police made this point very well too, for every single member of the Broken Hill community to stay home. Stay home, apart from your trips to get food, medicine, etc., and follow rigid hygiene practices. It's only when someone steps outside that we're going to be put in danger. You know, if residents just can't comply with those very basic requests, then, you know, our community, Madam Mayor, is our biggest risk, really. The Local Emergency Management Committee is the authority which will formulate a plan to protect Broken Hill and to make submissions to the state government for the relevant permits that are needed to check vehicles and to follow up offenders, because we can't do that. We just cannot do that. So that is why I am saying thank you to Councillor Kennedy. I'm very pleased that we have you know, validation of the concern by the whole council, by all councillors, for the safety of Broken Hill, and to have effective isolation measures, and that indeed, please, let's put this in the hands of the LEMC, that authority which is going to be able to push this as far as it can go. I don't see any harm in that. I mean no harm in that, most certainly. I'm fully supporting you, Councillor Kennedy, but I just want to make sure that this has got legs. And putting it to the LEMC at their meeting tomorrow, hopefully that's going to give it the strength that it needs.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Can I ask Councillor Kennedy wants to speak against the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I speak against the amendment because it's quite clear from discussions with the Local Emergency Management Committee, their view is there's other things that can be done that will be better placed to keep the community safe, which is your generic things such as washing your hands, social distancing. What I did like is that they did accept some of the ideas, and that was that potentially signage out on the Broken Hill, the access roads in the Broken Hill, and other measures at the local service stations such as disposable gloves or some sort of material that stops contact with the petrol pumps. What is wrong with the amendment is that it has time constraints. What I'd like to see is that the Minister completely understand. We've been virtually begged for help from the Wilcannia, Menindee, and now the Ivanhoe communities who want to make sure that all travel into Far West, particularly those smaller communities, and Broken Hill, who have a lot of family from Menindee, Wilcannia and Ivanhoe, needs to stop as soon as it possibly can. People are afraid of what's going to happen. At no time would I suggest that Broken Hill, Menindee or Wilcannia be locked down. I think that's essential that we have essential workers coming and going from Broken Hill, Wilcannia, Menindee, Ivanhoe, etc. What needs to happen is there needs to be some sorts of restrictions, whether that is how they act when they're in the community. There needs to be some guidelines that are formed through the Local Emergency Management Committee. The Local Emergency Management Committee, and one of the at point 6, that was to liaise with the Broken Hill Council and other stakeholders, the governing body of the council, because there is a lot of ideas and proposals that have been put forward by the community. One was a presentation or a submission from Barb Webster, who I thought had come up with a few very good ideas about what could be implemented. Some of those would be very difficult to implement, but some of those would be quite easily implemented. This isn't about locking down Broken Hill, Menindee or Wilcannia. This is about making it more safe. I think it's important that the community understands that, and we were given a presentation from the police, that the police will be doing all they can to ensure that at least travellers understand that travelling to the region is not an acceptable excuse for holidays, and that they will be having people up and around Menindee Lakes to let campers know that they will have to leave. So I'd say that so the community knows well in advance, and the police and the council will be making sure people understand this. This is not to stop people from having fun, but to make sure that local communities are protected. This needs to also happen in Broken Hill. Broken Hill people want to be protected. One of the things that was also said, and I agree strongly with, any restrictions we have need to be restrictions that people are willing to follow. What is very difficult is when you have restrictions that make people unhappy to follow them, that's when people break the rules. So it was made quite clear to councillors, and I'm now making it clear to the community, that restrictions that are put in place must be restrictions that people want to honour and people want to follow. As it is now, about 1 in 5 people don't follow. When it comes to harsher restrictions that people do not like, it can go up to 3 in 5, which was made clear to councillors. So when I talk about I'm not talking about lockdown, I'm talking about education of people that come in, understanding that when you come into Broken Hill, considering we are a population that has at this stage only 2 infections of the coronavirus, people need to understand we do not want it to spread. As people know, the virus doesn't move, people moves. And the only way the virus is going to spread in Broken Hill is if it comes in from outside. Restrictions, border restrictions do work, and I would hope that even if my motion doesn't get up, that this is taken into account by the local emergency management committee. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Speakers against the motion? Sorry, speakers for the amendment? Councillor Adams?
Councillor Kennedy, pretty well everything that was discussed with that police conference today has been said. So, and I agree, you know, exceptionally with pretty well everything that both have said in that sense. I just do believe that we need to support the local emergency management committee by giving them the control, or how can I put that? Put our interest in their hands on this. The one thing there that possibly that I would look at is number 3, where we do know that the Mayor had spent a lot of time on phone and emails and so on to all those people in State Health and the Federal Health Minister, and whether we could ask that the Mayor could send another letter explaining our situation. But even with that, I think, given what was said at that meeting, I really do think that the amendment is the way to go.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Clarke, did you have a clarification or a question? Because you've already spoken.
No, I guess I'll have a right of reply at some time.
No, you don't get a right of reply for an amendment. So, thank you.
Well, perhaps I can clarify a couple of points here. That I think that when Councillor Kennedy was speaking against my amendment there, he actually sounded as if he was supporting it in some ways. And I do want to just get a little clarification there if I can, or make one. Perhaps that might be better if I say that I'm going to make one here, that Menindee and Wilcannia and Ivanhoe certainly are pleading. They are pleading with the public. They are pleading with the public not to go there, and with very, very, very good reason. And then Councillor Kennedy did make the point that we should be doing this through the LEMC, that the LMC should be supporting these communities. Well, that's what I want them to do. I want this amendment to go to the LEMC so that they can do just that.
Thank you.
I've got a couple more things to clarify here. The police...
It's sounding like a bit of a speech. What I need to do, Councillor, is just check with you though. Is your amendment, Councillor Kennedy's motion 1 to 6, and then 7 is that we also refer our motion to the LEMC to consider at their meeting tomorrow? Is that, it is the complete motion of Councillor Kennedy, and then the last part is that this is all referred to the LEMC. Councillor Clark? Sorry, do I have to put my hand up all the time? I just needed you to clarify, we're just checking in with you, that your amendment is 1 to 6 of Councillor Kennedy's motion, and then 7 is we also... I would certainly be supporting most of what Councillor Kennedy has got here, but I'm saying that if this motion is sent to the LEMC to consider at their meeting tomorrow, that they will be able to implement some of those points and maybe look at the difficulties surrounding some of the others, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. I'm taking it that it was all Councillor, the original motion plus the addendum that it's referred to the LEMC. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion. Councillor Page, are you speaking again? Sorry, Councillor Page, are you speaking against?
I'd just like to follow up what Councillor Kennedy has made it very clear. We in Broken Hill have always had a history on fighting battles on behalf of people in the region and around the world. So for Maureen Clark to make comment about that, I think it's very inappropriate. And I think Councillor Clark, yes, you can wave your hand, Councillor Clark, but you go on and you criticise Councillor Kennedy for going on, and yet tonight you've gone on and on and on.
Thank you, Councillor Page. I think Councillor Clark and Councillor Kennedy are agreeing with each other. They just, Councillor Clark is also saying all that Councillor Kennedy has in his motion, but also that we involve the local emergency management committee. So that was Councillor Clark's amendment. Councillor Brown.
I suppose.
Why don't we just unmute you?
Am I right?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. Really just another clarification or a question, I suppose. My reading of the motion is that even if with the amended motion would still require you to make phone or any other contact with the state and federal health ministers anyway, which is certainly putting council's point of view quite separately from what the LEMC, if we're accepting the whole of that motion. So I would have thought that that would satisfy Councillor Kennedy as putting council's view separately maybe from what the LEMC decide to do or what they're permitted to do.
Thank you, Councillor. And I think that's what Councillor, that's exactly what I think Councillor Clark is saying, that we have the motion and that we actually have the amendment. Now that was a clarification. We were up to speakers.
Councillor Kennedy looks like he's got a question.
Councillor Nolan too.
Okay, go to Councillor Nolan. You have a question, Councillor Nolan. Can you wait till we unmute you? And you need to learn how to raise your hand. Councillor Nolan, can you speak? Councillor Nolan, can you speak?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you're unmuted.
I'm now unmuted. That's good. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'll use the button next time. What clarification I'm looking for, it may help. In the addendum, which is item 7, that this motion be sent to the LEMC. From what I'm understanding from the discussion, we're talking about it's also being sent to the LEMC as well as us following through on 1 to 6. So by way of clarification, could I ask if the word also would be appropriate to put in that item 7?
That also. Okay, so we're happy to put also in there. I'm sure Councillor Clark won't have a problem with that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Kennedy, we're just going to you. And this is the patience game, so thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't realise that it was just a add to a number 7. I thought that it was being sent to the LMC for ratification before this action was taken. So given that it is written as it is, I have no problem accepting that as an addendum. And
that's okay. We've already had debate for an amendment, so we'll leave it as an amendment. Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. If there's no further debate, I'm going to put Councillor Clark's amendment. All those in favour, do you know how to vote now? Okay, I have Councillor Brown has voted, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Adams has got a problem with her voting system. So Councillor Adams is voting yes. And who hasn't voted? Councillor Gallagher is yes. 5 yeses. The Mayor has voted yes. That's 6. Bob hasn't voted yet. You're not voting, Bob? Are you voting no? Okay, that's no. Who hasn't voted? Branko's not here. We've only got 3 left. Oh, me. So that's 6 to 1. Paige, you're a yes. So Paige is a yes. So that's 7. So I'm just going to go through this and correct me if I'm wrong. So Councillor Allgate is a yes. Councillor Gallagher is a yes. Councillor Jim Nolan is a yes. Councillor Brown is a yes. Councillor Maureen Clark is a yes. Councillor Tom is a yes. Councillor Adams is a yes. And Mayor Turley is a yes. And Councillor LaCour has left the building because he has IT problems. So that motion is carried. Can I thank you, everyone? Oh, sorry, the amendment's carried. We're now going to deal with that as a motion. Can I put Councillor Kennedy, do you want to speak? Because you were the original member of the motion.
Yes, thank you, Madam. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will move an amendment or an addendum if Councillor Clark accepts it. And that is that that the Broken Hill City Council help the Local Emergency Management Committee with any measures that they may wish to implement in relation to the coronavirus. That could include signage on the routes into Broken Hill, as well as extra protection at service stations.
Did he say fund? I can't see it, Lisa.
Help. I thought he said help.
No, he didn't say fund. He said help. He didn't say.
No, I said help.
I said help. So, okay, Councillor Clark, the motion, the amendment is, and I just need to get Lisa to move the box a bit for me, that the Broken Hill City Council, so the motion as is, and that the Broken Hill City Council help the LEMC of any measures they wish to implement with the coronavirus, including signage on the routes into Broken Hill, and implement any measures at service stations. Are you happy to include that, Councillor, in your amendment?
Am I unmuted? Oh
Yes,
yeah, I am.
you're
I'm
muted.
unmuted now.
Sorry,
think
he's asked if it would be an addendum to the current motion. Are you happy to include that?
Well, I think it became an amendment, Madam Mayor. It became an amendment. We've already voted on it, haven't we?
No, this is
On the amendment. Sorry?
He's asking one. If you're happy to include it in your motion that we're about to put your motion.
That the council help the LEMC. I think this goes without saying, and also...
You're happy to include it in your motion?
Well, yeah, because it goes without saying the police were already talking about that.
Okay, thank you. We'll include it in the motion, and we're going to now put Councillor Clark's motion with the addendum that was just put in. So I'll ask all the councillors to now vote. I'll put the motion. Can I see votes, please? Okay. So I'm just...
Tom got a question.
No, don't. Haven't got it. Okay, so I'm going to call out the votes. So firstly, we have Councillor Allgate, Councillor Adams, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Nolan, Councillor Brown, Councillor Clark are voting, and Councillor Clark, Councillor Page, Mayor Turley. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you, councillors. That motion is now carried. Can I thank every one of you for your patience tonight? So it's going to take... Tom, have you got a question?
Yeah, I was a right of reply, Madam Mayor.
Oh, Tom, I'm so sorry. It's so...
My hand was up. Now, if we're going to have these meetings, and if my hand's up, it wasn't unanimous, so I didn't vote. My hand was up. If we're going to have these meetings by virtual meetings, then if my hand's up, I expect to speak. A right of reply is one of the most important things.
My apologies, Councillor. I actually took it that you had voted. So I'm going to have to firstly put the right of reply, and then I'm going to do the vote again, so that, because I had counted you are voting for your original motion. So Councillor, you can do your right of reply, thanks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank councillors for going through this. I think it really is an important thing, and I think this will, we may not get anywhere with it, but I think this will send a clear message to the community that as a council, we are right behind doing all we can to ensure the safety of the community. We're doing all we can to stop the spread of the coronavirus in Broken Hill. This has taken us a little bit to get to, and it's been hard on this this virtual meeting. But as a council, and as all councillors and all the elected body and the management of council, I thank everyone involved, and I think that what come out of tonight, the community should be proud of, and the community should be happy with the time and the effort from all councillors and the management involved in this process, including the 2 police officers we had with us earlier. Thank you.
Virtual meetings, it's going to be a challenge for all of us. I'm going to put the vote. All those, can you please vote, please vote with your voting system in place. Ron, are you voting? Yes, thank you. Okay, I'll count the votes. So Councillor Allgate, Councillor Adams, Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Jim Nolan, Councillor Marion Brown, Councillor Maureen Clark, Councillor Ron Page, Councillor Tom Kennedy, and myself have all voted. We note that Councillor LaCour had left the meeting due to technical problems. We thank you all for your patience. You can see that it's going to be a challenge for us, but the more we do this, the better we will be. Thank you, everybody. With that, I will close the meeting. And as you know, this will be updated. The meeting will be, the recording will be put up on
Probably tomorrow if we can work out how to do it.
if we can work out how to do it tomorrow, and we will resend our letters. So thank you, everybody. I'll close the meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
All right.